It's the Score North Twin Show.
All right, Score North Extra Innings. Special guest. Look, there he is. He's back.
Wow.
He is back. Not me. I'm talking to Phil Mackey. Phil Mackey is back on Extra Innings.
This is the first time I go to a bunch of Twins games just to, drink a seltzer or three and enjoy the best bar in America, the best bar in the Twin Cities, which is Target Field. But I was trying to rack my brain. I think this is the first time I've been to a Twins game as a credentialed member of the media since before the pandemic.
Oh, wow.
I don't think I've done the press box thing since like the Bomba Squad season of 2019. And I realized that when running into like the Corey Provises and the Chris Atterberries and some people like the Mitch Hestads for the Twins, and they're like, "Are you lost? Is this like this is not the Vikings guy. This is not Flagrant Howls." But it's good to be back. And the Twins are about to play the Phillies and Bryce Harper here. So, and you, by the way, you were sleuthing around and gathering all sorts of great information. I got to watch Declan, beat podcaster Declan, in action in the clubhouse today. So I'm excited for this episode. A lot of juicy things.
A lot of juicy things. The sports dad will also be. He won't be on this episode, but he's here today too. So
he might be. I just bumped into him actually.
I wouldn't be surprised if he just bombards us. That'd be a classic Judd. Hey Dex, how do I get to set up over here? I can definitely see that happening. So yeah, I was sleuthing. Hello. Was sleuthing. Talked to Carlos Correa. Talked to some other front office people. Talked to a bunch of people in the organization today because we wanted some injury updates first on Correa and Royce Lewis, but then Carlos Correa kind of volunteered some very interesting intel. We knew some of this from his first tenure here. I like to always say the first, second, and third tenure because he had the 1-year contract, left us for 2 teams, then came back. But regardless, that's water underneath the bridge at this point. But after getting an injury update, which I will provide here in just a little bit on Correa and his return to the Twins, someone asked him, I said, hey, what about trade deadline plans? Because they know Carlos Correa loves to involve himself into the trade deadline plans. And Correa volunteered information basically just straight up on the record saying, I've already sent a lot of names already. You were there for this too. So I've already sent a lot of names for already. He said he wants to meet with Rocco. And when asked, well, did you do some light recruiting in Arlington at the All-Star game? Correa didn't play, but he did still attend the game with his family. He said, well, no comment on that. Absolutely no comment on that.
No tampering. He's not tampering.
All good. Can't really opt him there. But I did ask some other people around the organization. I was like, how much is he really involved? Because, you could say that, hey, I got some influence here, but does that hold any weight? And it sounds like from people that I have talked to, Carlos Correa is 100% involved in ideas, in proposals, even a lot of different things. So he is not just the captain of this team, which he is, by the way, but when he says that he is involved with these trade deadline plans, he actually means it.
What do you think he's floating? By the way, because I was there for the Carlos Correa sort of on the record media scrum too, and we can get to the injury stuff. He's in a boot at least temporarily, but on the trade front, I find it interesting that he goes through the proper channel. He's not going above his boss. Rocco is technically his boss, right? So, because I think Doogie asked him, or maybe it was you, do you just send ideas to Falvey, or how does that work? He goes, no, I'm respectful. I send them to Rocco, and then sometimes we have 3-way conversations. But I wonder. I'd love to just be a fly on the wall for those text message exchanges, whether it's him and Rocco or maybe Falvey's involved. Is he just floating the most ridiculous fantasy baseball things? Hey, Mike Trout, what do you think? What if we Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander? What do we think?
What if we, offered our 25th best prospect for Tariq Skubal? What? I'm just throwing it out there.
The Tigers are idiots. They'll say yes. They'll misclick and say yes.
It's clearly, though, starting pitching, right? I mean, and I even talked to a couple other players because they said, health-wise, when this lineup is healthy, which means Correa's healthy, Royce Lewis is healthy, they're still without Jose Miranda, who should be hopefully coming back here soon. Regardless, though, 1 through 9, the Twins lineup is pretty dang good at it, and it probably can hang with the majority of other lineups. But they need starting pitching help, obviously, to push them over the top. And I know right now the Twins lineup is not at full strength, but it's definitely got to be starting pitchers. I mean, there's a hole in the rotation starting on Wednesday, and that means, are they just going to roll with a 5th guy with a shrug emoji every 5th day until Chris Paddock comes back? So we're, 8-9 days away from the MLB trade deadline. I got to imagine it's for starting pitchers, and I would love to hear, once a trade is, pretty damn close, where does Correa fall on the pecking order of like, hey, we have an opportunity to go get, let's call it Nathan Eovaldi, who we've talked a lot about. Like, does that come on Correa's radar? Does that not even like approach to him? I find it super fascinating that he's like still very much involved in a lot of these decisions.
Yeah, I would think if it's Eovaldi, he's probably just a yes based on that guy's playoff track record. But yeah, it was for a guy, and he wasn't like disrespectful or anything, but it's pretty rare that you hear a star of a baseball team just flat out say on the record, yes, I'm very much involved in sending ideas, and yes, we could use some pitching around here. And, you know, it's not like a revelation that they could use pitching. We did the State of the Twins episode earlier on this Monday, and they're 6th in runs scored per game. They're 18th in runs allowed per game. And like you said, they don't know who their starter is going to be every 5th day because they've got a huge hole in their rotation right now. And even the bullpen, I mean, I think the best thing that they could do is get a playoff caliber starter and some sort of back-end reliever. I mean, that would be like the holy grail at this trade deadline. I don't know that you can get one or the other and expect to win a World Series. I almost think, like, the more I talk this through, I think it's both. I think if you want to win a World Series, I think you need not a front line, but like someone who could slot into your playoff rotation and somebody who can come in and get big outs next to Duran, Jax. It's a short list of relievers that you would trust against the best lineups in baseball right now. And by the way, like, to be 2-19 against the best teams that you've faced,
Yeah.
you know, some of that's kind of flukish, small sample size, but it's screaming at you. You aren't as good as the best teams in baseball. You're good. Twins have one of the 6 best records in baseball, but I think everyone knows, including Carlos Correa and other players in the clubhouse, what has to be done in the next week or so.
Yeah, it kind of feels like the Twins in terms of I just flew on Delta a few days ago. The Twins are like firmly in the end of main cabin. You know, in Delta, there's first class, there's Delta Comfort, there's like a decent amount of main cabin with the seat assignments, and the Twins are just like at the edge of the. I don't know if you have assigned seat till you get to the gate, but like you should be on this plane. We'll kind of see where you fall in the pecking order in terms of the rest of the plane.
Well, it'd be a good exercise for the Twin Show. Could you rank all 30 teams and categorize them first class, Comfort Plus, or are you showing up to the gate? Are you on standby? Like who's on standby right now?
Oh my God! But I also talked to some other just people around the organization because I just wanted to know more too about like what does Correa have, and someone told me like, well, one time like we did run an idea by Correa, like we had an idea about trading a certain player on the team for another arm, and he said, I'm not sure if I really like am feeling that type of trade. So like they definitely keep him involved, which I do find very interesting, and he should be. Like Correa's won a World Series, he's been to multiple World Series, he's been to All-Star games, so I think the fact that he is still involved in these conversations is probably a good thing, because there was even other teams like, God bless them, that 2017 Twins team, you know, fought hard and got that extra wild card spot, but like Brian Dozier's out there like kind of calling out the front office being like, we need some help here and they know what we need to do. I think when you have someone like Carlos Correa who's been there, done that, it does help that you can run by those ideas and they can also be reciprocal going the other way. Right.
He's also, it sounds too like he did it through the media today, but he's doing it like behind, he's not airing out the front office publicly in a confrontational way. He's got a great relationship with the people that he works for and works with. I'll turn it back to you just because you also were digging on the injury front. So, you know, the Twins are sitting here with Carlos Correa and Royce Lewis, their 2 best overall players, on the shelf right now. Correa had a walking boot on today. It doesn't sound like it's going to be like he said on the record a couple more days in the walking boot.
Yeah.
And then Royce Lewis was doing some running to test out how he feels right now. But what would you say about the Twins' 2 best players?
Yeah, on Correa, he said a walking boot for a couple more days. And I asked him, I was like, well, does this feel as sore or just like as painful? Because last year the plantar fasciitis was in the opposite foot that it was in, that the PRP injection was into for this foot. So he said it's about the same. And then he also wanted to play yesterday. Like he thought about it, realized, maybe not the best idea how last year played out, so he didn't want to do that. I would just kind of reading between tea leaves, I would say probably another week, a week plus without Carlos Correa. I would be pretty surprised if it lingers past like 2 weeks, but it sounds like he's in a good spot. And once the PRP injection, I talked to Royce when he got his in his quad, like the first couple days after that, you are getting a shot. I have no idea how big that needle is, and I probably don't want to ever know how big that needle is. But that injection site does hurt, and it gets pretty sore for a couple days. So he said once that like heals up, he'll be able to probably have at least somewhat of an idea of a return to play plan for him, which will be huge for the Twins.
Yeah. Yeah, man, this team at full strength, this lineup and group of position players, great problems to have, but I welcome a world in like August where you have a fully healthy Royce Lewis, a fully healthy, or as close as you can get, Carlos Correa. Brooks Lee, the offense has dipped a bit since the hot start in the first 8 games, but if Brooks Lee sticks around, and then Julian, if he can stay up after the stint in the minors, and not like now you're trying to figure out where to put all these potentially incredible infielders. I mean, that's the thing. Like the Twins at their best, the best version of him is a really good offense, and it's a really powerful lineup. And the numbers have bear that out too. But that's the thing. They're the 6th highest scoring team in baseball without really ever having, for more than a week at a time, their best lineup. Like either Royce has been out, or Julian has been in the minor leagues, or Brooks Lee was coming up. They haven't had like everything all together all at once, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, I talked to Royce about that because we were just talking state of lineups like 1 through 9. And he was like, if you took out, which is like, this isn't hyperbole, you took out Judge and Soto from that Yankees lineup, that's a bad lineup. Like that's not a great lineup. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of holes on that Yankees team, which is why they find themselves, kind of now looking up at the Birds and for the leading the AL East. I think with Correa and Royce and even Jose Miranda, who's obviously having a kind of a resurgence too, 1 through 9, you feel pretty good. And obviously like Correa and Royce at the peak of their powers, those are all-star level players. But I think 1 through 9, you're talking about like one of the more deeper Twins lineups. Maybe not Bomba Squad where everyone's hitting bombs, but everyone's having competitive at-bats. Everyone knows what to do at the plate. And I would feel pretty good about that lineup at full strength if the playoffs were to start. Yeah,
and I think, I don't know, like you're in that clubhouse on a regular basis. I'm just like popping in for the first time in 5 years, but it feels like everyone can sort of sense that the lineup is largely doing its job. Carlos Santana hits a big game-tying home run, and everything's great. And then, like, the pitching needs to just hold on. And it just, I don't know, it's almost like in football where, okay, we just scored 30 points on offense, and if you could just, hold them to 27, or if we tie the game late, just, don't give up an immediate game-winning touchdown or a field goal. I mean, that's kind of what it feels like with this Twins team right now.
On Royce Lewis, so he volunteered that he will begin a rehab assignment with the St. Paul Saints on Tuesday. The Saints were in Toledo. I believe they're now back at home, so he'll be just down the road from Target Field beginning a rehab assignment with the St. Paul Saints, probably playing, I'm guessing, some third base, playing some DH. And then the Twins will obviously be here for 2 more days, Tuesday, Wednesday against the Phillies, off day Thursday, and then I don't know if the plan is for Royce to just play on those Tuesday, Wednesday games, hop on the bus or plane with them as they go to Chicago. Maybe he does join them on the off day or maybe even on game day on Friday. But it does sound like Royce Lewis is in a much better spot and probably, if all things go well, will be returning to the Twins lineup probably by the weekend, I would assume.
Okay. Yeah, super interesting, man. Like, if that guy can stay healthy, that's where I'm so curious to see what this looks like after the trade deadline, because if all of a sudden you add, I'm going to keep saying Evaldi's name until he pops into a Twins uniform, but if you have a guy like that coming in here and Royce Lewis, it's like a trade. You get a healthy Royce Lewis. Yeah. You get a healthy Carlos Correa. The fact that they are 10 games over 500 and they've been battling through all this stuff and Lewis has been on the shelf for most of it is pretty incredible. So, like, even that Brewer series, it's hard for me to get too down on them. I know that it's like another example of them not living up to teams that are better than they are. But, man, like, when you're without your 2 best players, you're losing close games. I don't know. I'm not going to hammer them too much for those 2 Brewers games.
Yeah, and an unnamed Twins player even told me today, like, we need literal help, as in we need literal help at the trade deadline, I think, to push them over the top so they can upgrade their seat assignment to maybe Delta Comfort, maybe even first class. So, and those Brewers games, like, those were competitive games that the Twins even at one point had leads in or were in control of that they just kind of let slip away due to kind of just some dumb baseball IQ situations where, like, those Yankee games that they played them for 6, those were uncompetitive games of baseball. Like, that was old school PTSD stuff that I think was kind of lingering in there. But this AL is still open enough, and the Guards have now lost back-to-back games to the Padres, so they might be coming down to earth a little bit. I think it would be a little bit of a disservice to the rest of the guys in the locker room, that's just me speaking, with how good that lineup is at full strength, to not at least have some type of pitching boost to give them by the time October rolls around.
I have to ask it because we've done this song and dance a few times where we beg the Twins to take a good team and elevate it at the trade deadline, and then they pull a trade and the goods are damaged. They forgot to Google, name of pitcher, elbow injury or something. How worried are we that they would just make a trade for somebody that's been injured or on the shelf, some damaged goods? I mean, that's PTSD that still sticks in my mind, that they would make a trade and then that pitcher would have like a frayed labrum or something at the end of August.
And what's so weird is this front office has done a really good job at acquiring pieces when selling. I mean, the Nelson Cruz for Joe Ryan trade, I believe it was the Eduardo Escobar that brought Duran back here. I'm pretty sure that was also the same trade. Even heck, like the Sonny Gray trade, when they acquired him, I mean, they were kind of, that was right for opening day and things kind of fell together, but that was a good one. It's when they've tried to buy the Tyler Malleys, Jorge Lopez, those situations haven't worked. And this isn't me trying to like defend the front office. By this time, as we know, like in a baseball season, people are starting to get banged up. You certainly aren't at full strength by the time a season began in April, so people aren't maybe on, as health-wise at where they should be. But man, it would be a big black eye and just another maybe gut punch if they end up getting a pitcher that can only be here for like a month or maybe even just make a couple starts like Tyler Mahle, and then they're kind of back at square one with what they have.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that, they're reading through the medicals a couple different times here. But I will go on the record and say, if it's Eovaldi, I would just take my chances. I would just, whatever it takes to get a guy like that has proven playoff success and regular season success all wrapped into one. Like you brought his name up a couple weeks ago, and he's the one that I'm the most interested. What did Texas do the last couple days? Because they're like right on the verge of falling completely out of this thing, I feel like.
So they lost 2 of 3 to Baltimore over the weekend. They won yesterday, but they lost the series 2-3, and then I think they have the White Sox here for 4. So I mean,
okay. We need Texas to just like drop their ass to the White Sox here.
And Joel Sherman had some notes on MLB Network over the weekend because I believe Scherzer's close to coming back. Chris Young, the GM, former pitcher for the Rangers, said this is as good as Jacob deGrom has looked as he nears his return to the starting rotation, but it just might be a little bit too late. And what Chris Young from Joel Sherman, what he reiterated was, if they are to sell pieces, they are looking for things that will immediately help them either make a surprise push at the end of this year or have controllable assets that help them be better again and more healthy in 2025. So if they are to sell, it's not necessarily a rebuild. It'd be more like a retool. And I think with someone like Eovaldi, like that would just make sense, especially if that player option is going to kick in. You're probably going to lose him in free agency if he elects to not pick up his own option. So I'd be calling, man. And outside of like Walker Jenkins, Brooks Lee, etc., like I think the Twins are fairly, I would call open for business of at least trying to have a conversation with someone like that.
Do we think Kirilloff was in the clubhouse today? Do we think he has any trade value at this point?
Man, I don't think so. I maybe not as the centerpiece, certainly. Maybe not as the centerpiece at this point. He did have a bat in his hand. It looked like he was I wasn't able to confirm if he was hitting the cage or hitting outside of BP, but he was able to hit a little bit.
Sadly hugging the bat, rocking back and forth.
It's actually what I do between Extra Innings episodes. I just wait. But yeah, I mean, the Twins have one of the better farm systems in baseball. Emmanuel Rodriguez, who is an interesting cat, and also I know there was a weird Reddit report I think I talked about on today's episode where he's out for the year. I was able to confirm that is not the case. He is rehabbing his thumb and his hand and his wrist, but he is not out for the year. That is not true, which is good to know. But even they got Gabriel Gonzalez in that Polanco trade, and Gabriel Gonzalez is having a nice year, but that's not a prospect that you cultivated and drafted and developed. Like I could see them using that trade piece to maybe help them get an Eovaldi. It won't be the only thing that gets you Eovaldi, but you could do it. You could use it.
I think like that's when you look back at, and of course, I'm the one that at one point I think tweeted I would trade Royce Lewis for 2.5 years of Frankie Montas. Frankie Montas, by the way, he's made like 14 starts. Not exactly the same guy he was in Oakland 4 years ago, but when you look at pretty much any Twins top 10 prospect rankings list 10 years later, the names that you thought were sacred and it'd be sacrilege to consider trading Aaron Hicks or Ben Revere, go back to Jason Kubel wound up being a pretty good player, but not the player that you thought. Injuries happen. I'm with you. There's a select 2 or 3 that I would protect in the Twins farm system, and for the right type of player that could put me over the top, the right type of starting pitcher, or maybe it's a package of some kind, I'd be open for business if I were Falvey.
Yeah, so we're like 8-9 days away. I believe July 30th from the trade deadline. So 8 days away, and it's later this year. I think it's like at 6 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Central.
Used to be like time.
Little used to. Now it's actually a little later. So we'll be ready to rock with that. And what Mark Feinsand of MLB.com said this week is expected to heat up. But the MLB trade deadline, as much as I love hot stove and all that baseball stuff, it really does come down to like the last 7 hours. And more like the last 2 to 3, if we're being completely honest, where all hell and chaos starts to break loose, where people start to panic a little bit. So I'm excited, man. I hope the Twins can at least try to buy something here, and hopefully they can add a piece to make this rotation or this pitching staff in general better.
Yeah, I think fans, and we talked about this on State of the Twins here, I guess my last thought, fans are kind of ready to jump back on here. The attendance has been a lot better over the last month or so, and people remember how fun that was down the stretch, and you have a runway now. I know Vikings training camp, the first practice is this week, but the Wolves have cleared the runway, and the Wild aren't starting up, nor will likely be relevant. So they're the next window of time here until the Viking season starts. People are going to be paying attention to the Twins, and they can right a lot of the PR wrongs with the TV situation and the payroll cutting $30 million by continuing to win and by maybe making a splash here in the next week or so.
Super exciting stuff. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button on Score North Extra Innings. Declan Goff, Phil Mackey in his return to Target Field. We'll see if he's back again. Is this a one-time thing? Are they going to let you back here? Oh.
I haven't pissed anyone off yet so far here. We'll see. I'm wondering what's the press box snack situation. Do we still have the roller hot dogs and Polish sausage? Or
we got the roller dogs, the brats, the burgers. The popcorn and trail mix. You should see how much. Actually, you get to see how much trail mix Judd will go through over a 9-inning game. I'm very excited for you.
Do they have oysters or ahi tuna crisps in here or no?
We're in what's called the Thriving Club, formerly the Legends Club. Take a lap.
Oh, you're right. It's classy. Yeah,
take a lap.
They might have some ahi tuna crisps up here for the classy Twins fans like myself.
So follow at Phil Mackey for his food update. Hit the like button, subscribe button. Give us a 5-star rating on Apple, Spotify, however you listen. Appreciate it. This is Score North Extra Innings. We'll be talking at you on a Trevor Plouffe Tuesday tomorrow.